The trial had lasted 7 minutes. Rebecca Lewis stood in the center of the Supremacy Council chamber, her wrists bound with energy restraints that hummed softly in the recycled air. 12 alien species sat in judgment above her, arranged in a semicircle of elevated platforms that made her feel like an insect in a jar. She had expected this outcome from the moment they dragged her from her ship 3 days ago. The galaxy had already decided what humanity was worth. Not much, apparently. Chancellor Droth clicked his mandibles together, a sound that echoed through the vast chamber like breaking glass. His species resembled Earth's praying mantises, if praying mantises stood 8 feet tall and wore robes made of living metal. His compound eyes reflected Rebecca's image 1,000 times over, each one showing her small and alone. The human commander refuses to provide access codes to her planet's defense systems, Droth announced. His voice translated through implants that made every species hear him in their own language. This represents a direct violation of Compliance Protocol 17. All member species must submit their military infrastructure to supremacy oversight within 1 standard cycle of joining the galactic community. Rebecca said nothing. Earth had joined the galactic community 80 years ago, and in that time they had learned exactly what membership meant. It meant mining quotas that stripped planets bare. It meant labor assignments that killed workers faster than they could be replaced. It meant watching your children conscripted into supremacy military units and sent to die in wars they never understood. It meant surrender. The defendant will speak, Droth commanded. No, Rebecca said simply. A ripple of movement passed through the council members. Several smaller species chittered nervously. A being made entirely of crystalline structures chimed in what might have been surprise. The delegate from Forge Prime, a massive creature of stone and fire, rumbled something that the translation implants rendered as mild curiosity. You refuse to defend yourself? Droth leaned forward, his triangular head tilting at an angle that would have snapped a human neck. I have nothing to defend. You've already decided. Rebecca met his fractured gaze without blinking. You brought me here to make an example, so make it. In his cell 3 levels below, Peter Grant heard those words through the audio feed and pressed his fist against the wall, hard enough to split his knuckles. He had served with Rebecca for 12 years. He knew that tone. She had given up trying to reason with them, but she had not given up. Droth rose from his seat, his full height casting shadows across the chamber floor. Very well. For crimes against the supremacy and refusal to submit to lawful authority, Commander Rebecca Lewis of the species human is sentenced to immediate execution. The method will be cervical severance, quick, clean, appropriate for one who will not bend her neck in service. Rebecca felt her heart rate spike but kept her breathing steady. Cervical severance. They would cut her neck nearly through, severing the major blood vessels and spinal column. It killed most species in seconds, leaving them paralyzed and bleeding until unconsciousness took them. She had seen it done to a rebel from Kepler 7 last year. He had died before he hit the ground. This execution will be broadcast to all human settlements, Droth continued. Let your people understand the cost of defiance. 2 guards approached, their species unimportant. The supremacy drew its enforcers from 12 worlds, always choosing the largest and most intimidating. These 2 stood nearly 10 feet tall, covered in plates of natural armor that gleamed under the chamber lights. They grabbed Rebecca's arms and forced her to her knees. A 3rd guard stepped forward carrying the execution blade. It was not metal but something else, a material that held an edge sharp enough to slice through molecular bonds. In the right hands, it could cut through almost anything. Rebecca closed her eyes briefly, thinking of Earth, thinking of the blue oceans and green forests that the supremacy wanted to strip for resources, thinking of the 4 billion people who still believed freedom was possible. Then she opened her eyes again and raised her chin, exposing her neck. Any final words? Droth asked as if it mattered. Tell them we said no, Rebecca answered. The executioner moved with practiced efficiency. He positioned himself behind her, measured the angle with professional care and struck. The blade cut through skin, muscle, and vessels with surgical precision. Blood sprayed across the polished floor in patterns that would haunt the cleaning staff for weeks. Rebecca's body jerked from the impact, her nervous system firing random signals as major pathways were severed. The pain was incredible, a white-hot fire that consumed every thought. She should have collapsed immediately. Her brain should have shut down within 5 seconds as blood pressure dropped and oxygen ceased flowing. The executioner stepped back, expecting her to fall. Rebecca's eyes stayed open. Blood poured down her chest, soaking through her uniform. Her hands clenched into fists, the energy restraints flickering as her body's electrical field fluctuated. Every alien in the chamber leaned forward, compound eyes and sensor organs focusing on the impossible sight before them. She was still conscious. Droth made a sound that needed no translation. Shock, perhaps, or the beginning of fear. Rebecca's vision tunneled, darkness creeping in from the edges. Her body screamed at her to lie down, to give in, to let death take her. But humans had not survived ice ages and predators and plagues by giving in. Humans had survived by being too stubborn to know when they were beaten. She turned her head slowly, agonizingly, and looked directly at Droth. Blood bubbled from the wound with each heartbeat. The executioner had cut deep, severing both carotid arteries. By every medical standard known to the supremacy, she should be dead. But her eyes burned with fury. In that moment, looking into those defiant human eyes, Droth understood they had made a terrible mistake. They had struck her neck to break her. Instead, they had shown the galaxy that humans could look death in the face and refuse to blink. Rebecca's lips moved, forming words she could no longer voice. The blood loss was finally taking her, pulling her down into darkness. But before consciousness left her completely, she made sure Droth saw what lived in her eyes. Not fear, not surrender, just the promise that they had started something they could not finish. Then she collapsed, her blood spreading across the floor in a pool that reflected the chamber lights like a crimson mirror. Alarms began wailing as medical teams rushed forward. The broadcast cut off abruptly, but it was too late. 4 billion humans had just watched one of their own refuse to die on command. The revolution had begun. The medical containment unit smelled like copper and antiseptic. Dr. Amy Wells watched the monitors surrounding Rebecca's bed, each one displaying readings that should have been impossible. Heart rate elevated but steady, brain activity normal, blood oxygen levels critically low but somehow sufficient to maintain consciousness. The woman should have been dead 6 hours ago. Instead, Rebecca stared at the ceiling, her neck wrapped in layers of synthetic tissue and stabilizing fields that held the wound closed. She could not speak. The damage to her throat was too severe, but her eyes tracked every movement in the room, alert and aware. "I do not understand this physiology," said Dr. Vorn, the Supremacy's chief medical officer. His species had practiced medicine for 3,000 years, had cataloged the biology of 200 sentient races, and had never encountered anything like this. He gestured at the scans with 3 of his 6 arms. The cervical vertebrae are intact, but both carotid arteries were completely severed. The jugular veins the same. She should have lost consciousness in seconds. Brain death in minutes, yet here she remains. Amy forced herself to maintain a neutral expression. She had volunteered to assist with Rebecca's care for one reason: to gather intelligence. The Supremacy thought humans were simple, fragile, easily understood. They were about to learn otherwise. Human circulatory systems have redundancies, Amy said carefully. Collateral blood flow through smaller vessels. The vertebral arteries in the back of the neck can compensate somewhat for carotid loss. Somewhat? Vorn's eye stalk swiveled toward her. This is not somewhat. This is a complete rerouting of cerebral blood flow through vessels 1/10 the normal diameter. The pressure differential alone should cause hemorrhagic stroke. Why is she not having a stroke? Because humans evolved to survive, Amy thought. Because our ancestors hunted prey by chasing it until it collapsed from exhaustion. Because we learned to function with injuries that would kill faster, stronger species. Because we are persistence predators, and persistence means not dying when you are supposed to. I honestly do not know. Amy lied. Perhaps you should scan more deeply. Vorn returned his attention to the monitors, muttering calculations in his own language. Amy moved closer to Rebecca's bed, pretending to check the stabilizing field. Rebecca's eyes shifted to meet hers, and Amy saw the question there. What happens now? Amy had no answer. The execution had been broadcast across every human world before the signal cut out. By now the colonies would be in an uproar. Earth's government would be facing impossible pressure, and the Supremacy would be scrambling to understand how their demonstration of power had become a demonstration of human resilience. The Chancellor wants a full report, Vorn said. He wants to know how this happened. More importantly, he wants to know if this is normal for your species. Nothing about this situation is normal, Amy replied, which was technically true. A soft chime interrupted them. The containment unit door slid open, and Chancellor Droth entered with 4 guards. His mandibles clicked rhythmically, a sign of agitation in his species. He approached Rebecca's bed and stared down at her. "You should be dead," he said flatly. Rebecca's lips moved, but no sound emerged. Her damaged vocal cords could not produce speech. Instead, she raised one hand slowly and formed a gesture that needed no translation. One finger extended upward. Droth's mandibles stopped clicking. "Remove the restraints. Give her something to write with." The guards hesitated but obeyed. They released the energy cuffs around Rebecca's wrists and handed her a data tablet. Her hands shook from blood loss and trauma, but she managed to type out a message. The tablet's screen displayed her words in glowing text. "You struck my neck. You should have aimed for my heart." Droth read the message 3 times. "Defiance will not save you. It will not save your world." Rebecca typed again, her fingers moving more steadily now. "You made me an example. I am grateful. Now my people know what we are fighting. You are fighting nothing. You are dying slowly in a medical facility." Rebecca's response came quickly. "Then why are you here? Why does the great Chancellor of the Supremacy visit a corpse?" Amy watched Droth's body language shift. His stance widened slightly, his head lowering. Defensive postures. He was unsettled and he did not know how to hide it. "Dr. Vorn," Droth said without taking his eyes off Rebecca. "How long until she expires?" Vorn consulted his instruments. "Unknown, Chancellor. Her physiology is compensating in ways I cannot predict. Hours, perhaps. Days if we provide additional support. But the damage is too severe for full recovery. Even human medicine cannot repair this. Then let her die naturally. No more interventions. I want this ended." "Chancellor," Amy interrupted, "if she dies, she becomes a martyr. If she lives, you might still salvage this situation. You could claim you showed mercy." Droth's mandibles began clicking again, faster now. "Your species does not understand mercy. You understand only 2 states, submit or resist. She has chosen resistance. Let her suffer the consequences." Rebecca was already typing. "You think my death ends this? It does not. You think my suffering weakens us? It does not. Every human watching that broadcast saw what you did. They also saw that I did not break. You have given them hope. Thank you." Droth moved suddenly, faster than Amy thought possible. He grabbed the tablet and threw it against the wall, shattering it into pieces. "Hope is a lie you tell yourself before you die. Your planet has 48 hours to surrender full access to all military systems. If they refuse, we will begin orbital bombardment of population centers. 1 city every hour until compliance is achieved." Amy felt her blood turn cold. "You cannot." "I can. I will." Droth turned to his guards. "Seal this facility. No one enters or leaves without my direct authorization. The human commander will remain here until her homeworld submits or until she finally has the courtesy to die." The Chancellor left, his guards following. The door sealed behind them with a hiss of hydraulics. Amy stood frozen, her mind racing through implications and possibilities. Rebecca made a small noise, something between a cough and a grunt. Amy rushed to her side. "Do not try to talk. You will damage—" Rebecca grabbed Amy's wrist with surprising strength. Her eyes were intense, focused. She pointed at the shattered tablet, then at Amy's pocket. Amy understood. She pulled out her personal communication device, keeping it angled away from the security cameras. Rebecca took it and began typing one-handed, her other hand still gripping Amy's wrist. The message appeared. "They are afraid. Fear makes them dangerous, but fear also makes them stupid. Get word to Peter. Tell him to wait for my signal." "What signal?" Amy whispered. "You cannot even speak." Rebecca's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. She typed again, "I do not need words. I have something better. I have proof that we survive what should kill us." "That proof is enough." Amy glanced at the monitors. Rebecca's vital signs were stabilizing. The human body was adapting to its new reality, rerouting blood flow, compensating for catastrophic damage. It was medically fascinating and strategically terrifying. "They will bombard Earth," Amy said. "Millions will die." Rebecca's response was immediate, "Then we make sure they cannot. We break out. We break the supremacy. We are 2 people in a locked medical facility surrounded by an entire station full of alien security forces. Rebecca typed for almost a minute. Her message longer this time. We are two people who know exactly how vulnerable they think we are. We are two people who have access to medical systems and knowledge of this facility. We are two people who represent a species that survived ice ages and predators and diseases and made it to the stars anyway. Two is enough to start. Tell me, Doctor, are you willing to fight? Amy looked at the woman in the bed. Half dead, unable to speak, covered in bandages and blood, still planning revolution, still refusing to surrender. Amy had joined Earth's military medical corps to save lives. She had never considered herself a soldier, but perhaps saving lives and fighting for them were the same thing. Yes, Amy said, I am willing. Rebecca nodded once and closed her eyes. Not in defeat or despair, in rest. She was conserving strength for what came next. Amy turned back to the medical monitors and began planning. The Supremacy had made a mistake. They had tried to kill Rebecca Lewis to prove human weakness. Instead, they had proven that humans did not know how to die when ordered, and that would make all the difference. Peter Grant had escaped his cell using a maintenance bot and 17 minutes of careful hacking. Now he crouched in a ventilation shaft 3 levels above the medical facility, studying security patterns through a stolen datapad. The Supremacy Council station was massive, a small city floating in space with populations from dozens of worlds. That size made it powerful. It also made it vulnerable. Too many systems, too many access points, too many places where a determined human could hide and plan. Below him, guards patrolled in predictable patterns. Every 12 minutes, a gap opened near the medical facility's eastern service entrance. 18 seconds. Not much, but humans had built an empire on less. His communicator vibrated softly. A message from Dr. Wells routed through 6 different relay points to avoid detection. Simple text, she is stable. She is ready. 43 hours until bombardment begins. Peter checked his chronometer. The Supremacy had given Earth 48 hours to surrender. 5 hours had already passed. In 43 more, Supremacy warships would begin destroying human cities one by one until Earth's government gave them what they wanted. Full access to planetary defenses. Complete control over human military assets. Total surrender disguised as cooperation. Earth's government was debating it now, Peter knew. Some politicians wanted to comply, arguing that a few billion lives were worth saving even at the cost of freedom. Others wanted to resist, damn the consequences. The argument would continue until time ran out or someone made the decision for them. Peter intended to make that decision impossible. His communicator vibrated again. This time the message came from Earth itself, encoded in a transmission that looked like commercial shipping data. Only 12 people knew how to decrypt it. Peter was one of them. Message decoded. Colonies are rising. Mars refused labor quota. Europa stopped ore shipments. Titan has gone silent. They are waiting for confirmation. They are waiting for her. Peter smiled grimly. The colonies understood what Earth's government did not. You could not negotiate with the Supremacy. You could only submit or resist. Rebecca had chosen resistance and paid the price. Now the colonies were ready to pay it too. But first they needed proof she lived. Peter closed the datapad and began moving through the ventilation system. The shafts were too small for most species, built for maintenance drones rather than living beings. Humans fit perfectly, another advantage of being the small, weak species. The Supremacy had designed their station assuming size meant power. They had assumed wrong about many things. 20 minutes later, Peter reached the maintenance level directly above the medical facility. He cut through a service panel with a plasma torch set to minimum power, making a hole just large enough to slip through. The room below was dark, filled with backup generators and life support equipment that hummed softly. Peter dropped down and immediately pressed himself against the wall. Security sensors swept the room every 30 seconds. He counted the intervals, watched the pattern, then moved during the blind spots. 3 steps. Pause. 5 steps. Pause. Roll behind a generator. Wait. The door to the medical facility was locked, but locks were just computers with attitude. Peter connected his datapad and began working through the encryption. The Supremacy used quantum-locked systems that resisted most hacking attempts. Most. Humans had learned to exploit quantum uncertainty itself, using probability fluctuations to create backdoors in supposedly secure systems. It took 8 minutes. The lock disengaged with a soft click. Peter slipped through the door and found himself in a storage area filled with medical supplies. He grabbed a lab coat from a hook, pulled it on, and walked into the facility like he belonged there. Confidence was the best disguise. Most security depended on people doing what they were expected to do. Walk with purpose and no one questioned you. He passed 3 alien medical staff who barely glanced at him. Humans all looked alike to most species. One more doctor in a lab coat drew no attention. Rebecca's room was at the end of a long corridor, behind a sealed door marked with hazard symbols. 2 guards stood watch. Peter recognized their species. Heavy gravity worlders, strong as industrial equipment and about as smart. They relied on size and intimidation. Peter approached them directly. Dr. Wells sent me to check the patient's neural readings. The Chancellor wants hourly updates. The guards looked at each other. One spoke in heavily accented Galactic Standard. No one enters without authorization code. Fine. I will return to Dr. Wells and inform her you refuse the Chancellor's direct order. Peter turned to leave. Wait. The guard held up a massive hand. You have clearance verification? Peter showed them the stolen datapad, displaying a medical authorization he had fabricated 5 minutes ago. The guards could not read human script. They saw official-looking symbols and assumed it was legitimate. The door opened. Peter stepped inside and it sealed behind him. He turned and saw Rebecca on the bed, her neck bandaged heavily. Amy stood beside her, adjusting monitors. Both women turned to look at him. About time, Amy said quietly. Rebecca's eyes lit up with recognition. She grabbed the tablet beside her bed and typed quickly. You look terrible. Prison food disagreed with me, Peter replied. He moved to her bedside and examined the bandages. How bad is it, really? Amy pulled up scans on a wall display. Both carotid arteries severed. Trachea partially damaged. Spinal cord intact but bruised. She should be dead or at minimum in a coma. Instead, she is awake, alert, and apparently planning an insurgency. Not planning, Peter said. Executing. The colonies are ready to follow Rebecca's lead. Mars, Europa, Titan, all of them. But they need confirmation she is alive. The broadcast cut off before anyone knew if she survived. Rebecca was already typing. Then we give them confirmation. We broadcast again. Show them I live. The supremacy will stop any transmission, Amy said. They have control of all communication systems, Peter smiled. They have control of official systems. But this station has 3,000 commercial vessels docked at any given time. Each one has independent communication equipment. We just need access to one. Rebecca typed Oren. Who is Oren? Peter asked. Amy answered. Alien scientist. Works in the xenobiology department. He has been helping me understand Rebecca's condition. He seems sympathetic. Seems is not the same as is, Peter said. Rebecca grabbed his arm and typed one-handed. Trust is a risk. Revolution requires risks. Find Oren. Peter studied her face. The bandages covered most of her neck, but her eyes were clear, determined. He had served with this woman for over a decade. He knew that look. She had made up her mind and nothing would change it. All right. Where do I find this Oren? Amy checked her chronometer. Xenobiology Labs, Section 7. He works late shift. Should be there now. And if he refuses to help? Rebecca's response was immediate. Then we find another way. We always find another way. That is what humans do. Peter nodded. 42 hours until bombardment begins. I will have communication access in 6. Get ready to make history. He turned to leave, but Rebecca grabbed his arm again. When he looked back, she was typing slowly, carefully. Thank you for not leaving me behind. Never, Peter said simply. We are Earth Defense Force. We do not leave people behind. Even when those people are supposed to be dead. Rebecca's eyes crinkled at the corners. The closest she could come to a smile with her damaged throat. Peter slipped back out of the room, past the guards who still believed he was just another doctor. He made his way through the facility and back to the maintenance levels. The ventilation shafts welcomed him like old friends. As he crawled through the narrow spaces, Peter allowed himself a moment of hope. The supremacy thought they had broken humanity's resistance. They thought one execution would terrify 4 billion people into submission. They had not accounted for human stubbornness. They had not accounted for the fact that sometimes trying to make an example of someone just made them a symbol instead. Rebecca had survived what should have killed her. That survival meant something. It meant humans were not as fragile as the galaxy believed. It meant the soft bodies and short lifespans hid something stronger. It meant rebellion was possible. Peter reached another access panel and paused to check his datapad. A message from Mars had just arrived, encrypted and urgent. He decoded it quickly. We saw what they did to her. We saw her eyes. Tell Commander Lewis that Mars stands ready. When she gives the word, we rise. Peter forwarded the message to Rebecca through Amy's secure channel. Then he continued through the ventilation system toward Section 7, where an alien scientist named Oren might be humanity's unlikely ally. Behind him, throughout the station and across human colonies light years away, people were making the same calculation. The same choice: submit or resist, live free or die trying. Rebecca had already made that choice. She had looked death in the face and refused to blink. Now it was time for everyone else to do the same. Oren had been studying human biology for 3 weeks and understood less than when he started. The scientist sat in his laboratory surrounded by displays showing cellular structures, genetic sequences, and biochemical pathways that refused to make sense. His species, the Viridians, had 6 hearts distributed throughout their bodies. Redundancy was familiar to him, but humans took it to an absurd extreme. Not just extra organs, extra pathways, extra systems. Everything doubled, tripled, backed up, and cross-connected, a species built not for efficiency but for survival. He was reviewing cardiovascular scans when his laboratory door opened without warning. A human male stepped inside, moving quickly and quietly. Oren recognized the type. Military bearing, alert eyes, controlled aggression barely contained. "Dr. Oren?" the human asked. "Yes, who are you?" "This laboratory is restricted. My name is Peter Grant. I need your help." Oren's primary heart accelerated. He had heard that name. Grant was the human officer imprisoned after the trial, the one who should still be locked in a cell 3 levels down. "You escaped. If I am seen with you, I will be charged as an accomplice." "You are already an accomplice," Peter said. "You have been helping Dr. Wells study Commander Lewis. That makes you complicit in keeping her alive. The Chancellor will not forgive that." Oren's secondary heart joined the first in rapid beating. "I am a scientist. I study what interests me. Commander Lewis's survival interests me greatly." "Why?" The question surprised Oren. Most humans in his limited experience asked what or how. Few asked why. He gestured at the displays surrounding them. "Because your species should not work. Your biology violates basic principles of efficient design. You waste energy maintaining redundant systems. You sacrifice speed for endurance. You choose resilience over optimization. And yet you survived. You thrived. You reached the stars. I want to understand how." Peter moved closer to the displays, studying the images. "We survived because we are too stubborn to die. That is the secret. Not complicated biology, simple refusal to give up." "Biology and behavior are not separate things," Oren said. "Your stubbornness is enabled by your physiology. Commander Lewis survived cervical severance because her vertebral arteries compensated for carotid loss. That is not stubbornness. That is anatomy. She stayed conscious through blood loss that should have caused immediate unconsciousness. That is not anatomy. That is will." Oren considered this. "Perhaps both. Perhaps your species evolved will as a survival trait. Perhaps your stubbornness is genetic." Peter smiled without humor. "Maybe. Right now I need your help to prove that genetics. I need to broadcast a message showing that Commander Lewis is alive. I need communication access that cannot be traced or stopped by supremacy security." "Impossible. All communications are monitored, not cargo vessel systems. They operate on independent networks for commercial privacy. If we could access one, we could send a message before security even noticed." Oren's tertiary heart began beating. "You want me to help you commit treason against the Supremacy Council. I want you to help me prevent a massacre. In 39 hours, the Supremacy begins bombing Earth. Millions will die. But if the colonies see that Commander Lewis survived, if they see proof that humans can withstand what was meant to kill us, they will rise. They will resist. The Supremacy will face insurgency across a dozen worlds. That creates leverage. Leverage creates negotiation. Negotiation saves lives. Or it creates war. War kills more than bombs." Peter leaned against a laboratory table. "War is already here. The Supremacy declared it when they tried to execute a military officer for refusing unlawful orders. We are just deciding whether to fight back or die quietly. Oren turned to his displays. Humans fascinated him, but fascination was not worth dying for. He had family on his homeworld, responsibilities, a career that spanned decades of research. Everything to lose. I cannot help you, Oren said. I am sorry. Peter nodded slowly. I understand. Fear is rational. Self-preservation is logical. He moved toward the door, then paused. But let me ask you something, Doctor. You study life. You analyze what makes species survive or fail. What do you think will happen to the Viridians if the supremacy succeeds here? If they crush human resistance completely? The supremacy maintains order across hundreds of worlds. That order protects us all, does it? Or does it protect the 12 species on the Council while exploiting everyone else? Peter turned back to face him. The supremacy demands resource quotas that strip planets bare. They conscript labor that kills workers faster than they reproduce. They executed Commander Lewis for refusing to surrender Earth's defenses. What happens when they demand the same from your world? What happens when the Viridians say no? Oren said nothing. He had asked himself these questions late at night when sleep eluded him. His species served the supremacy as researchers and medical staff. Valuable but not irreplaceable. There were always other scientists, other doctors. They will do to you what they did to us, Peter said quietly. They will make an example. And then they will ask if your biology is as resilient as ours. Spoiler, it is not. Your 6 hearts make you redundant. But if someone severs your main arterial trunk, all 6 stop. I checked. Oren met the human's eyes. You researched how to kill my species. I researched the biology of every species on this station. Know your enemy. Know your allies. Know the difference. Peter moved to the door. If you change your mind, I will be in Maintenance Tunnel 7, Section 3. You have 6 hours before I move to Plan B. What is Plan B? Less elegant. More violent. Higher chance of failure. Peter smiled again. That humorless expression that seemed uniquely human. We prefer diplomacy, but we will settle for chaos if we must. The door closed behind him, leaving Oren alone with his displays and his thoughts. The scientist returned his attention to the genetic sequences floating in 3-dimensional space around him. Human DNA was shorter than most species, more compact. Less overall information, but more flexible expression. They could adapt to environments that killed other races. They could survive injuries that should be fatal. They were persistence predators evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. And now they were applying that same relentless pressure to the supremacy itself. Oren pulled up historical files on species that had resisted supremacy authority. The list was long. The outcomes were uniformly grim. Rebellion led to extermination. No exceptions. No mercy. But none of those species had survived their own executions. Oren made a decision that felt both insane and inevitable. He gathered specific equipment, a portable transmitter, encryption keys, and access codes to the commercial docking bays. Everything needed to send one untraceable message to every human colony simultaneously. He left his laboratory and made his way through the station corridors. Guards nodded at him without suspicion. Scientists moved freely throughout the station. Another advantage of being seen as harmless, Maintenance Tunnel 7 took effort to find. The entrance was hidden behind a false panel in a storage room. Oren pulled it open and climbed inside, his anatomy awkward in the narrow space. Humans had been right about one thing. Being small had advantages. Peter was waiting in Section 3 examining a circuit panel. He turned as Oren approached, his expression neutral. You came. I came, Oren confirmed. I am either very brave or very stupid. Most brave acts look stupid until they work. Oren set down his equipment. I can give you access to commercial communication networks. But this must look like a malfunction, not sabotage. The message needs to appear as if it bypassed security accidentally. Can you make that happen? Yes, but we need physical access to a cargo vessel's transmitter. That means going to the docking bays. Peter nodded. I have a route that avoids security checkpoints. Follow me. They moved through the maintenance tunnels, Oren struggling with the confined space. Peter navigated effortlessly, his human body perfectly suited to environments designed for machines rather than life. Why are you helping us? Peter asked as they crawled. Because I am a scientist. Scientists ask questions. And the question your Commander Lewis asked with her survival is this. What if the supremacy is wrong? What if strength is not size and power is not domination? What if resilience matters more than either? And you want to see the answer? I want to see if the universe has room for different kinds of strength. If it does, then my species has a future. If it does not, then we are already doomed. They reached the docking bays 40 minutes later. Peter studied the security patterns while Oren prepared the transmitter. The commercial vessels were massive, designed to carry cargo across light years. Each one operated independently, with communication systems that could not be easily monitored. Perfect for sending a message the supremacy could not stop. "Ready?" Peter asked. "Ready," Oren confirmed. Peter disabled the security sensors using a carefully timed electromagnetic pulse. 3 seconds of blindness. Oren connected the transmitter to the nearest cargo ship's communication array. The connection established instantly. "Now we need the message," Oren said. Peter activated his datapad. The screen filled with an image. Rebecca Lewis sitting on her medical bed, bandaged and wounded but undeniably alive. Her eyes stared directly into the camera, burning with that same defiance she had shown during the execution. Below the image, text in simple words. "They tried to kill me. I am still here. So is Earth. So are all of you. Do not surrender. Do not submit. We are human. We do not break." "Send it," Peter said. Oren initiated the transmission. The message broadcast across every commercial frequency simultaneously, bouncing through relay stations and communication networks faster than security could react. By the time the supremacy realized what happened, the message had reached Mars, Europa, Titan, and every other human colony. 4 billion people saw proof that Rebecca Lewis lived, and in that moment, rebellion became inevitable. Chancellor Droth discovered the broadcast 17 minutes after it transmitted. He stood in the command center watching the message repeat across every monitoring screen simultaneously. Rebecca Lewis, wounded but alive, staring into the camera with those impossible human eyes. Her words scrolled beneath the image in dozens of languages, translated automatically by systems designed to facilitate galactic commerce. Now those systems facilitated rebellion. "Shut it down," Droth commanded. "We cannot." "Chancellor," his communications officer replied. The message bounced through 6,000 commercial relay stations. It propagated faster than we could track. Every human colony received it. Multiple times. Then send counter messages. Tell them it is a fabrication. They will not believe us. The image includes medical data, facility markers, timestamps. Everything authenticates it as genuine and current. Droth's mandibles clicked rapidly. How did they access commercial networks? Unknown. Security logs show no intrusion. It appears the message originated from cargo vessel transmitters, but we cannot determine which vessel or how access was obtained. Another screen activated, showing emergency reports. Mars had stopped all ore shipments. Europa refused to answer communications. Titan's orbital facilities had gone dark. Across a dozen worlds, human workers simply stopped working. They did not riot or attack. They just stopped. "Passive resistance spreading like a virus. Mobilize the fleet," Droth ordered. "Advance the bombardment schedule. We strike Earth in 6 hours, not 36. Send a message that cannot be misunderstood. Chancellor, the Council requires unanimous approval for... I am invoking emergency protocols. The human infection is spreading. We contain it now or lose control of a dozen systems." Droth turned to his security chief. "Find Commander Lewis. Find everyone who helped her. Execute them immediately. No trials, no broadcasts, just death." The security chief hesitated. "Chancellor, killing her now makes her a martyr. Perhaps we should. She is already a martyr. Her continued existence simply gives the rebellion a living symbol. Remove the symbol. End the rebellion." The security chief departed. Droth returned his attention to the screens showing human colonies in growing chaos. Not violence, just stillness. Workers sitting down. Ships refusing to launch. Facilities going quiet. The supremacy depended on labor from hundreds of worlds. If humans stopped working, others would follow. The entire economic structure could collapse, all because one woman refused to die when ordered. In the medical facility, alarms began wailing. Amy heard them and knew immediately what they meant. She grabbed Rebecca's arm. "Security is coming. We need to move now." Rebecca was already out of bed, her movements slow but determined. She wore stolen medical scrubs and had wrapped her neck wound in fresh bandages. Her data tablet was tucked under her arm. Amy helped her toward the door. "Where?" Rebecca typed quickly. Peter found an escape route through the lower maintenance levels. "We meet him at Junction 47. They moved into the corridor. 3 other humans in the facility had received the same warning. Nurses, technicians, anyone who had helped keep Rebecca alive. 7 people total. Moving through passages most species never noticed. The station was huge, built over decades, with countless obsolete sections and forgotten access ways, perfect for hiding. They reached Junction 47 to find Peter waiting with Oren and 2 others. A human engineer named David and an alien medic from a species called the Sethari. The Sethari resembled Earth's octopi, with 10 tentacles and bioluminescent skin that flickered with emotion. "This is Lena," Oren said, indicating the Sethari. "She has been studying human resilience. She wants to help," Rebecca typed. "Why?" Lena's skin flashed patterns that the translation implant rendered as speech. "Because the supremacy killed my predecessor for suggesting humans might be more durable than official assessments indicated. Because truth should not be a death sentence. Because you survived and that matters." Rebecca nodded and typed, "Then you are welcome. Security has sealed the docking bays," Peter reported. "We cannot steal a ship, but there is an alternative. This station has emergency escape pods scattered throughout lower sections. Most are forgotten, never maintained. They will get us away from the station, but not much farther." "Away is enough," Amy said. "Once we are off the station, human colonies will send retrieval ships." "Assuming the colonies still exist," David said quietly. The Chancellor moved up the bombardment schedule. "Earth gets hit in 6 hours." Rebecca grabbed Peter's arm and typed urgently, "We stop it. We must stop it. How?" "We are 7 people trapped on a station with 20,000 security forces." Rebecca typed, "We do not need to fight 20,000. We need to fight one. Droth, remove him, the council fractures." "He will be surrounded by guards," Peter said. Rebecca smiled, or at least her eyes did. She typed, "Then we make him come to us." 20 minutes later, Rebecca recorded another message. This time she did not use a stolen transmitter. She used the station's emergency broadcast system, the one designed to warn everyone during catastrophic events. Peter had hacked it using access codes Oren provided. The message would go everywhere simultaneously. Rebecca sat in front of a portable camera, her neck bandaged, her face showing exhaustion and pain. But her eyes were steady. She typed her message and let the text-to-speech system give her words. "Chancellor Droth, you tried to execute me to prove human weakness. You failed. You tried to silence the broadcast of my survival. You failed. Now you plan to destroy Earth because you cannot accept that your demonstration of power became a demonstration of human resilience. This will also fail." She paused, letting her words reach every corner of the station. "I challenge you. Face me directly. No guards, no weapons. Just you and me. If you win, Earth surrenders. If I win, you end the bombardment and release all human territories from supremacy control. You claim superiority. Prove it." Peter touched her shoulder. "He will never accept. It is beneath his dignity." Rebecca typed, "He must accept. His authority depends on fear. If he refuses a challenge from someone he already tried to kill, he looks weak. If he accepts and wins, he destroys human morale. If he accepts and loses, the council sees him fail. Either way, we create doubt." The message broadcast across every screen, every speaker, every communication device on the station. Billions across the galaxy watched a wounded human woman challenge the most powerful being in the supremacy to single combat. In the command center, Droth watched the message 3 times. His council members appeared on communication screens, their reactions varying from shock to amusement to concern. Several spoke at once, their voices overlapping. "This is absurd. You cannot seriously consider. It is beneath your station to engage with the human is injured. This is hardly fair combat. If you refuse, it shows weakness to every species watching." Droth silenced them with a gesture. "I accept." The council members fell silent. "Chancellor, this is unnecessary," one said. "Simply order her execution. And make her a martyr again? No, she wants to prove human resilience. Let her try. When I kill her directly, personally, it will end the rebellion more effectively than any bombardment." Droth turned to his security chief. "Arrange a neutral location. No guards, no interference. Broadcast it across the galaxy. Let every human see their symbol destroyed." 6 hours later, they faced each other in an empty cargo bay. The supremacy had cleared the space, installed cameras, and invited representatives from every major species to witness. Humans across the galaxy stopped what they were doing to watch. The colonies fell silent. Earth held its breath. Rebecca stood on one side of the bay, her neck still bandaged, her movements careful. Droth stood opposite, his full 8 feet of Kitnus height casting shadows. No weapons beyond their bodies, no rules except survival. You cannot win, Droth said. Your species is fragile. I am apex predator evolution. Speed, strength, natural weapons. What do you have? Rebecca pointed to her bandaged neck, then to her eyes. She had a small speaker attached to her collar connected to her tablet. She typed, I have the one thing you do not understand. I have the refusal to quit. Stubbornness is not strength. Rebecca typed, watch me prove otherwise. Droth moved with terrifying speed. His species could strike faster than human eyes could track. His bladed forearms, evolved for hunting, could cut through metal. He closed the distance in 2 seconds and struck. Rebecca was already moving, not away from the attack but into it, inside his reach where his blades could not generate force. She grabbed his arm and used his momentum against him, redirecting his strike into empty air, judo techniques adapted for alien anatomy. Droth recovered and struck again. Rebecca ducked, rolled, came up behind him. She could not hurt him with direct attacks. His exoskeleton was too strong. But she did not need to hurt him. She needed to frustrate him. He spun, his blades cutting air where she had been. Rebecca kept moving, staying close, disrupting his attacks. Blood seeped through her bandages from the exertion. Her wound reopened. She did not stop. You are dying, Droth said. You prolong the inevitable. Rebecca typed one-handed while dodging. Humans are good at prolonging the inevitable. We call it living. She moved again, but slower now. Blood loss was taking its toll. Droth saw the weakness and pressed. His next strike caught her shoulder, cutting deep. Rebecca stumbled, nearly fell. Droth moved in for the finish. His blade rose, preparing to sever her spine. Rebecca dropped flat, rolled between his legs and grabbed a hydraulic cable running along the cargo bay floor. She pulled hard. The cable detached and high-pressure fluid sprayed directly into Droth's face. His compound eyes immediately clouded. Temporary blindness. Rebecca did not hesitate. She grabbed a cargo loading hook, heavy metal meant for moving containers. She swung it with everything she had left, aiming not for his body but for his legs. The hook caught his knee joint, the one weak point in his exoskeleton. Droth collapsed, his blade clattering across the floor. Rebecca stood over him, breathing hard, blood pouring from her shoulder and neck. She picked up his fallen blade and held it to his throat. The cargo bay was silent. Billions watched across the galaxy. Rebecca typed with one hand, her message appearing on every screen. This is not human weakness. This is human strength. We survive what should kill us. We fight when we should surrender. We refuse your authority because authority must be earned, not taken.
Do you yield?
Droth looked up at her through clearing eyes. For the first time in his long life, he felt genuine fear, not of death, of irrelevance. This small, fragile creature had defeated him, and every species in the galaxy had witnessed it. I yield, he said. Rebecca lowered the blade. She typed, end the bombardment. Free the human territories, or next time I will not stop. Droth stood slowly, his dignity shattered. He gestured to the cameras. The bombardment is cancelled. Human territories are released from direct supremacy oversight. The Council will negotiate new terms. Rebecca nodded and collapsed. Amy and Peter rushed forward, catching her before she hit the floor. The rebellion had won. 6 months changed everything. Rebecca stood on the observation deck of the new assembly hall, a structure built on neutral ground between Earth and the old supremacy territories. Her reflection in the transparent aluminum showed the scars clearly. The bandages were gone now, replaced by visible marks that ran across her throat like a permanent reminder. Her voice had returned partially, rough and limited but enough for short sentences. Mostly she still relied on the speech device attached to her collar. Behind her, representatives from 300 species gathered for the first session of the Galactic Assembly. Not a council of the powerful, but a parliament of equals, at least in theory. Reality would take longer to match the ideal. They are ready for you, Peter said, approaching from the entrance. He wore his Earth Defense Force uniform with new insignia, Ambassador Security. His role had changed from soldier to diplomat's guardian. The transition had been uncomfortable for both of them. Rebecca nodded and activated her speech device. How many are hostile? about 40%. Another 30% are uncertain. The rest support reform. So we have 30%. Not enough. No. But it is a start. They walked through corridors filled with beings from across the galaxy. Some nodded to Rebecca with respect. Others turned away, their species still loyal to the old order. A few stared with open hostility. The Supremacy Council had been dissolved, but its supporters remained. Change was easier to declare than to implement. The assembly hall was vast, designed to accommodate species of every size and environmental need. Separate atmosphere zones, varied gravity fields, temperature controls. Engineering marvels that proved cooperation was possible when properly motivated. Fear of human rebellion had motivated quite effectively. Rebecca took her position at the central platform. Around her, tiered seating rose in concentric circles, each level holding different species. Cameras broadcast the session across the galaxy. Earth watched. The colonies watched. Everyone watched. Chancellor Droth sat in a far section. No longer Chancellor, but simply a delegate from his homeworld. His species had removed him from power after his defeat. He met Rebecca's eyes briefly, then looked away. Shame was universal, apparently. The assembly speaker, a crystalline being named Resonance, chimed to signal the session's beginning. Her voice carried through the hall in harmonics that translation devices rendered as formal speech. The assembly recognizes Earth's delegate, Commander Rebecca Lewis. Rebecca activated her speech device. The synthetic voice carried clearly, emotionless but effective. 6 months ago, the Supremacy tried to execute me for refusing to surrender Earth's defenses. They failed, not because I am special, but because I am human, because humans are built to survive, because we refuse to accept that power equals authority. She paused, letting the translation devices catch up. Since then, we have seen the Supremacy Council dissolved. We have seen territories freed. We have seen species who were silenced finally speak. Progress, but not enough. Because freedom declared is not freedom guaranteed. We must build systems that prevent future tyranny. We must create accountability. We must ensure that no species again faces what mine faced. Murmurs spread through the assembly. Some supportive, many not. A delegate from the Forge Prime Systems rose requesting recognition. Resonance chimed approval. The delegate, a being of living stone and fire, spoke in grinding syllables. Earth demands much for one who nearly caused galactic war. Your resistance created chaos, shipping lanes disrupted, economic collapse, species conflicts. You claim to prevent tyranny while creating disorder. Rebecca met the delegate's burning eyes. Disorder is not tyranny. Chaos is not oppression. You had peace under the Supremacy, yes. The peace of submission. The peace of subjects who fear to speak. That is not peace. That is controlled silence. We broke the silence. If that created chaos, then chaos is progress. Another delegate rose, this one from the Sithari worlds. Lena, the medic who had helped Rebecca escape the medical facility. Her skin flashed patterns of support. The human delegate speaks truth. Many species lived in fear under Supremacy rule. We provided labor, resources, lives. We received protection, they said. Protection from what? From the Supremacy itself. This assembly exists because one species refused to accept that arrangement. Perhaps other species should learn from that refusal. Learn what? Snapped another delegate. Learn to rebel? Learn to disrupt order? Humans are dangerous precisely because they do not accept natural hierarchy. They are weak individually but collectively unstable. They should be contained, not celebrated. Rebecca felt her anger rising but forced it down. Anger was not useful here. Logic was. Evidence was. She typed quickly, her words appearing on screens throughout the hall. You call humans weak. Let me present data. In the 6 months since the assembly formed, humans have rebuilt 70% of disrupted infrastructure. We have established trade agreements with 80 species. We have provided medical aid to colonies abandoned by Supremacy forces. We have done this while recovering from attempted genocide. You call this weakness? Amy stood in the gallery watching Rebecca work the room with words instead of weapons. She had helped prepare this presentation, gathering evidence of human contributions across the galaxy. The numbers told the story clearly. Humans worked faster, adapted quicker, and rebuilt stronger than most species expected. Persistence predators applied to civilization itself. Oren sat beside Amy, his multiple hearts beating in synchronized patterns that indicated focus. He leaned close and whispered, She is winning them over, slowly, but the opposition remains strong. She survived an execution and defeated the Chancellor in combat, Amy replied. If that did not convince them, what will? Time. Humans think in decades. Most species think in centuries. You want immediate change. They want gradual adjustment. The conflict is philosophical, not practical. On the floor, Rebecca continued her presentation. She showed images of human colonies working alongside alien species. She showed infrastructure improvements, medical breakthroughs, agricultural innovations, evidence of cooperation rather than domination. We do not seek to rule, her device announced. We seek to participate. We offer partnership, not submission. We ask only that you judge us by our actions, not your assumptions. We have proven we can survive. Let us prove we can build. Resonance chimed for order as multiple delegates tried to speak simultaneously. She recognized one from a species called the Orthani, beings of pure energy contained in crystalline matrices. The assembly must address the core question. The Orthani said, "Can humans be trusted with freedom? Their biology makes them unpredictable. Their emotions override logic. Their short lifespans create urgency that disrupts long-term planning. These are not insults. These are facts. How do we integrate a species fundamentally different from established galactic civilization?" Rebecca smiled, or at least her eyes did. She typed her response carefully. "You are correct. We are different. We are emotional. We are short-lived. We are urgent. But these differences are not weaknesses. They are adaptations. Our emotions drive us to protect each other, to build communities, to care about outcomes. Our short lives make us value time, to accomplish rather than delay. Our urgency pushes progress forward." She paused, then added, "You want to know if we can be trusted? Ask instead if you can afford to exclude us. Because we are here. We are not leaving. We are not submitting. We are part of this galaxy whether you accept it or not. The question is whether you work with us or against us. I recommend working with us. We are much better as allies than enemies." The hall erupted in noise, arguments in 100 languages translated and overlapping. Resonance chimed repeatedly for order. Rebecca stood calmly at the center, her scarred neck visible to everyone, a permanent reminder of what she had survived. Finally, order returned. Resonance addressed the assembly. "The proposal before us is clear. Earth requests full membership status with autonomous military rights, independent trade authority, and representation in all assembly decisions. Discussion will continue tomorrow." Session adjourned. Rebecca left the platform and walked through corridors now filled with debating delegates. Peter fell in beside her, his hand never far from the weapon at his side. "Old habits." "You did well," he said. "I did adequately. They still fear us, and fear is honest. Better than false friendship." They reached a private meeting room where other human delegates waited. David, the engineer who helped their escape. Several colony representatives. Admiral Hayes from Earth Defense Force. Together they reviewed the session, analyzed reactions, planned tomorrow's strategy. "We have 40 votes confirmed," David reported. "Need 150 for majority approval. Another 30 are leaning our direction but not committed." Admiral Hayes leaned back in his chair. 6 months ago we were facing extermination. Now we are negotiating membership terms. I call that progress. "Progress is not victory," Rebecca said. Droth accepted defeat but did not accept change. His faction still holds significant power. "They are waiting for us to fail, to prove their assumptions correct. Then we do not fail," Peter said simply. Rebecca looked at her team. Exhausted, determined, united. 6 months ago they had been rebels fighting for survival. Now they were diplomats building a future. The transition was strange but necessary. Her communicator chimed. A message from Earth. She read it quickly and smiled. Mars colony just signed a mutual defense pact with the Cathari worlds. First formal alliance between human and non-human territories. Amy laughed. Lena works fast. She understands what most do not, Rebecca said. Change comes from relationships, not regulations. We build trust one species at a time, one agreement at a time, one shared goal at a time. She stood and walked to the window. Outside, ships from 100 worlds docked at the assembly station. Trade vessels, diplomatic cruisers, military escorts, the galaxy in miniature, trying to figure out how to coexist. Rebecca touched her throat, feeling the scars. They no longer hurt, but they reminded her. They had struck her neck to silence her, to break her, to prove human weakness. Instead, they had proven human strength. Not the strength of invulnerability. The strength of resilience. The strength to survive and continue. The strength to look death directly in the eyes and refuse to blink. That strength had changed everything. "Commander?" Peter stood beside her. "Your thoughts?" Rebecca activated her device. "I am thinking that 6 months ago I could not imagine standing here. I could not imagine an assembly where humans voted as equals. I could not imagine species listening when we spoke. And now I imagine more. I imagine humans and Sithari building colonies together. I imagine trade routes that benefit everyone. I imagine a galaxy where power comes from cooperation, not domination." She paused. "I imagine a future worth the fight." Peter nodded. "Then we keep fighting. Diplomatically now, but still fighting." "Always fighting," Rebecca agreed. "That is what humans do. We fight against tyranny. We fight against injustice. We fight against the assumption that weak means broken. We fight until the galaxy understands we cannot be ignored." She turned from the window and faced her team. "Tomorrow we return to the assembly. We present evidence, we build alliances, we convince the uncertain. We do this because we must. Because freedom is not given. It is earned. And we have earned the right to stand as equals." Amy raised her glass. "To standing as equals." The others joined. "To standing as equals." Rebecca raised her glass but did not drink immediately. Instead, she looked at each person in the room. People who had risked everything to help her survive, to help humanity survive. "They struck my neck," she said, her natural voice rough but clear. "They thought it would kill me. They thought it would break us." She touched her scars again. "They were wrong. They gave us a symbol. They showed the galaxy what happens when you try to destroy something that refuses to be destroyed. They taught us that survival is victory. That persistence is power. That humans do not break." She raised her glass higher. "They struck my neck. My eyes told a different story. The story continues. We make sure it ends well." They drank together, united by struggle and hope. Outside the window, the galaxy turned. Inside the room, humans planned their future. The story was far from over. But the first chapter had ended with humans standing, speaking, participating. Not as subjects, as equals. And that was victory enough for now. Rebecca returned to the window and watched ships come and go, each one carrying species that had once seen humans as weak. Now they saw something different. Not strength measured in size or power. Strength measured in will, in refusal. In the simple, stubborn determination to survive and thrive. They had struck her neck. Her eyes had told a different story. That story was now written in the laws of a new galaxy. A galaxy where humans stood equal. Where resilience mattered more than force. Where one woman's survival had sparked revolution. The scars on her neck would never fade. Rebecca was glad. Let them remain. Let everyone see what humanity had survived. Let the mark serve as permanent reminder. They had tried to break her. They had failed. They had tried to break humanity. They had failed. And the galaxy was better for their failure